Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the Coaches Forum, Increasing Diversity in Coaching, put together by a joint effort by the WBCA and the NABC. I am your moderator for this afternoon, Tracy Ellis-Ward. I currently serve as a Senior Associate Commissioner at the Big East Conference, and also the privilege of serving as our Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer. So again, welcome everyone this afternoon. We've got a great lineup for you of panelists. So we're looking forward to jumping right in. But before we do that, again, I want to just thank the WBCA and NABC leadership, Danielle Donahue and Craig Robinson, for continuing to collaborate on today's forum and pulling this together. It just is a demonstration of the ongoing commitment to serve and support and educate coaches in this manner on this topic. And I know both organizations have been really actively engaged the past 6 months or more on creating concrete ways to serve the membership in terms of solutions around racial justice, diversity, and inclusion. And I myself am specifically honored to co-chair the WBCA Social Justice Task Force that was developed back in the summer. And our mission really is in that space to work to ultimately help dismantle systemic and institutional racism and oppression within our communities through the action and voices of women's basketball coaches, allies, and advocates of the game. And part of our charge and our focus in that task force is hiring practices, training, education, advocacy, and awareness. And today, part of our focus will be on this discussion of hiring. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panelists for today. We have the pleasure of having Jason Belzer, who is the founder and president of Game Inc., an agency that specializes in the career management and marketing of coaches and the creation of college sporting events. He is also the founder of AthleticDirectorU, which is a top destination for college athletics leadership and management thinking and training. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you for having me.
Coach James Jones from Yale is the all-time winningest men's basketball coach in Yale history. He is a 3-time Ivy League Coach of the Year and has guided Yale to 5 Ivy League championships and 3 NCAA tournament appearances. Thank you, Coach Jones, for joining us today in the midst of a busy season, I'm sure.
Thank you, Tracy.
Felisha Legette-Jack is in her 9th season at the helm of the Bulls. Coach Jack is the all-time winningest coach in the program's history, and she also led Buffalo to 7 straight winning seasons for the first time since they joined the MAC. She's a New York native with 13 years of D1 coaching experience and has spent 6 years also prior to Buffalo's stint at Indiana University, and is a good friend that I've known for a long time. So thanks, Coach Jack, for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And last but not least, Tamica joining us from the beaches on her vacation, so she gets a gold star today. Tamica Smith Jones is the athletic director at University of California, Riverside. And since she's been at the helm, the Highlanders, and her focus has been centered on building a culture for champions and guiding the rising D1 program in the West Coast Conference to a renewed sense of purpose and energy. As a result of her leadership, they've won 7 individual Big West championships, a first ever national championship in the weight throw, and she's continuing to lead the way on a wide range of strategic initiatives and important issues impacting today's student athletes and coaches. So thank you, Tamica, for joining us today as well. And we appreciate everyone's involvement today and look forward to a really robust discussion today around hiring. We will open it up towards the end of the format. If you want to begin to drop questions in the chat, you can, and we will do our best to get to that. We'll leave the last 5 to 10 minutes open for some questions from our audience members, participants today. So without further ado, we'll just jump right into some questions. And this one is really focused on kind of the decision makers So I'm going to target this to you, Jason. We're often hear that it's very difficult. We hear from sometimes leadership that they can't find candidates of color for specific head coaching positions. Do you feel like it's so difficult, and what potential answers or remedies do you have to address that comment?
Sure, it's a good question, and it's quite frankly a bad excuse that a lot of athletic directors make. I think in general, athletic directors often do a poor job of preparing candidate lists before jobs actually open. And that goes for both diverse candidates and non-diverse candidates. I think that athletic directors are a little bit overwhelmed, obviously, with everything they have to do. And so when the decision to hire a coach in a head coaching position happens, they are often left scrambling to come up with a short list of individuals that may or may not be good candidates. Now, that is the value of search firms, who often are tasked with being able to put together a group of individuals that can come to the table and be a varied pool. But the challenge is that athletic directors need to take more time to be conscious about developing relationships and developing whatever it is, whether that's a database of candidates or leveraging the resources that the NABC, the WBCA, or the NCAA created to allow them to come up with those candidate names. And I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but one of the things, or the positive side effects that we feel the Collegiate Coaching Diversity Pledge, which a lot of ADs have signed, is that it essentially forces them to come up with candidate lists before they actually need to go hire somebody, just because of the nature of the protocols. One of our intentions was to make sure that people are paying attention to the rising coaches out there for those positions that they're going to need to find. So it's a question of time and resources, but I think that there has been overall over the last couple of years a more conscious effort to find a deeper list of candidates for these head coaching openings.
Okay, great. Thank you. Tamica, I'm going to transition to you maybe as a follow-up to that question. In what ways can decision makers expand that network and kind of walk away from that, I can't find anybody, and you're sitting in that AD chair, and I'm sure you've hired a lot of coaches in your day. So how do you capitalize on what some of the things Jason just mentioned?
Well, Jason hit it spot on, and I think it's all about intentionality. And as a minority athletic director, guess what? I can find the minority coaches and administrators. So the one thing that I would suggest is that we get out of our, good old boys system and really, be intentional about the efforts that we say we want to create for others. I know, traditions and assumptions and, the fit is the one that I really have a problem with. Sometimes don't give our coaches and administrators opportunities that they have worked hard for and really deserve. And so I would just encourage, those that are listening to the calls, coaches aspiring to advance and administrators aspiring to advance, to really be have a critical eye for leadership. I've learned so much over the last 20 years of being in athletics and been in the seat twice, that leadership matters. And you can see the signs of a good leader early. And whether they will champion for you, whether they will give you the tools to help enrich you. We get pigeonholed a lot as coaches and administrators in certain roles and responsibilities. So I just would, just double down on what Jason said from a standpoint of identifying leaders that are really walking the walk and not just talking the talk.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm going to pick on the coaches here, Coach Jack and Coach Jones. What do you believe the benefit in terms of having a more diverse coaching staff? What benefits do those actually have for the student athletes?
I want to piggyback off about the ADs need to know who we are. I have a lot of colleagues that, that don't look like me, and I watch how they work. And one thing I notice is that when my colleagues want opportunities, they start recruiting the AD. I've never done that. One thing about me, and I think a lot of people that look like me, we hope that somebody notices us. We hope that somebody get to see the work that we're doing, and pray that they give us an opportunity by having us in their office. And when we get in that office, they're going to really know who we are. I think it's important that we don't wait anymore. We got permission to become. And so how do you do that? You find those 5 different ADs that you think that you want to work for. I was a fired coach, and the reason why I went to Indiana wasn't because of the great Indiana. It was because of a guy named Rick Greenspan, a gentleman that I knew I could work with. The guy that was hired after Rick, I don't think I would ever want to work for him, nor would he have ever hired me. And so it's important that we decide that what do we want to work, what's going to give us success with the people that surround us, and go search those people out and get to know them and have them mentor you. That's one thing. And the second thing about having somebody like me coaching you, and you're an athlete that look like me, I think that we can get down and dirty a little bit. It's really kind of interesting. I've been into all white environments, and I can be my whole self outside of my work. I get to my work, I have to dumb down and become something that was acceptable. One thing about an African-American, in my opinion, coach and an African-American kid, you can be yourself, your total authentic self. And I'm learning, even at year 32 in the business, how to have that kind of permission, if you will, to just be who I am, all of me. And I think that having somebody that's diverse, and from being African-American, from being gay, from being other things other than what ADs seem to hire first. If we have that little bit of a diversity on our staff, it's going to give permission to everybody on your team to be whomever they want to be.
Great. Thanks, Coach Jack. That was great. Anything else, Coach Jones, you want to add on that specifically? I love your comment about permission to become. I wrote that down. I love that quote.
Well, also, most of our teams are diverse. And without having diversity in the coaching staff takes away from an opportunity for people to be able to go and to talk to someone. So as a head coach, I think most of my guys could come and talk to me, but they normally go through chain of command. They're going to talk to an assistant coach first, and to have somebody that looks like them on staff is extremely important, because they have a better understanding of who they are and where they come from. That's not to say that other people can't understand you, that's not to say that other people don't understand. But at the same time, the comfort level of a young man or a young woman going to a coach and that to someone that looks more like them and have been through some of the same struggles just makes life so much easier. And there's no excuse in this business for not having diverse staffs. There's just no excuse for it.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Coach Jones. Speaking of which, I know both of you have spoken to, and all of you really, the importance of having a diverse staff. Can you speak to anybody? I'll open this up for everybody. How oftentimes we see coaches of color kind of pigeonholed in certain positions on the coaching staff, and or quote unquote being the only one. What advice would you have for somebody in that position, and how to navigate that, particularly if they're looking to aspire to be a head coach someday?
Well, let me start with that. I was an assistant coach, and I worked for several men, and I wasn't given much of the time of day when it came down to X and O. My job was to go out and recruit, and that was from their standpoint. But so for me, what I did was I spoke up. I had conversations with the head coach where I put him aside and said, listen, I think I can add, I think I can help here, and this is how. And, I had put some documents together and handed it to him. So to give him some understanding that I did know what I was talking to, and also what I was looking for personally as a coach. I aspired to be a head coach someday. And to be able to be a head coach, you have to be able to function in all aspects of the business, not just recruit, not just scout. You have to be able to do everything. So in doing so, as a head coach, I make sure that all my assistants do everything. I delegate so much to them because I want to prepare them to sit in my seat someday. And the only way you do that is if you're going to go and have each guy do a little bit of everything. And obviously some people are going to have strengths and weaknesses in some areas, and some guys are going to have strengths and weaknesses in other areas. So you have to find that on your staff, certainly, but you also have to give opportunities for them to learn so they can have some growth. If you're not as a head coach, having your assistants grow, you're doing them an injustice.
Thanks, Coach Jones. Anybody else like to speak to that? Coach Jack?
You know, I was very blessed to work under Mariana Freeman at Syracuse and Joanne P. McCauley at Michigan State. And so I had tremendous mentors who mandated that we all do everything. You know, I needed to know how to do the budget. I needed to coach posts. I needed to coach guards. And so we were, whether you want to become a head coach or not, you were already prepared to be a head coach because of the way you were mentored. And so that's what we do here at University at Buffalo. And the neat thing is, it's important as a head coach that you don't sit on your throne and just delegate out. And what I do is, right now, I don't have a Dobo and I don't have an assistant coach. She's down, she's out for a few days. And so we have 2 assistant coach, 1 manager, and we're going to figure it out. How we do that, they're going to see me carrying the luggage in. They're going to see me mopping the floors and getting the balls out. When they see a head coach with the humility, I think that they realize they can ask the question. I don't understand. I need to figure out. You said budget, but how do you read that line? When you give young people an opportunity to become a great coach, it's important that you allow them to make mistakes. And so they see me making mistakes on a daily basis, and they understand that if she can do it for 32 years and been a head coach for whatever, then I can still be, because she's just, she's messing up all the time, and she's raising her hand. And I think young people, especially now, if we're going to diversify our staff a lot more, we got to let these young people know it's a game of mistakes that we're coaching, but what you're going to be doing is about mistakes as well. It's very important you ask the question prior to trying to create a mistake. And so we're creating that here. We took a team to the Sweet 16 with 1 manager, just 1 manager, and no Dobo and 3 coaches. How do you do that? Everybody do more than what they're supposed to do. And with that kind of culture, I think that not only you're growing young people to be a head coach, you're growing young people to be leaders in their own families and their lives as well.
Yeah, that's great insight, Coach Jack. Tamica, both of the coaches have talked about the importance of mentoring and modeling, and really, you hear the word a lot, sponsor, right? Somebody to sponsor me, in terms of networking to the next level. Talk a little bit about maybe an important mentor or sponsor in your life and how that relationship led you to where you are today.
Absolutely. And I just want to appreciate what Coach Jones and Coach Jack said about, giving coaches a safe space and opportunity. And I strongly believe in that. One of the things before I go into the sponsorship I've done at the University of California, Riverside, is started a coach, So You Want to Be a Head Coach series that I have worked with our assistant coaches, anybody that was interested, whether it was Dobos or, assistant coaches, even head coaches that wanted to learn more about different aspects of coaching. So the budgets and donor development and things of that nature. So that's critically important. But to your point of the sponsored pieces is, the first person I can think of is the president at Clark Atlanta University, who asked me to serve as an interim athletic director during a time when there was a transition. And I think sponsors are people that really just believe in you, and they see a little bit further than you probably even see for yourself. And they're willing to, what some people think is a risk, but they don't see it as a risk. They see it as an opportunity to help you grow. I've raised my hands for almost everything in athletics as a former student athlete, former coach, now having been in athletic administration. I think it's just my responsibility to serve as that illustration of hope, serve as that person that lifts and rise. As much time as I could commit, my Fridays are spent trying to be at the beach and returning all the emails of people that have reached out to me, just because I know how important we're terribly busy as athletic directors sometimes, but you just have to be intentional about it. And I think, having people that will believe in you and that will give you an opportunity to slow down just enough to be able to talk you through some things is so critically important, not just for young aspiring coaches and administrators, but for those that are seasoned as well, that may not have had the cross-functional opportunities that are necessary, especially the higher you rise in the level of competitiveness the more demand it's going to be as it relates to maybe dealing with donors and being a part of capital projects and just, being able to understand all the workings of that. Somebody's got to take the time to do that. So I believe sponsorship is very important. I think as coaches do a very good job of that already with their young people. If they can just translate that to, their staff and even others outside of their programs, I think we can move this needle a lot further as it relates to hiring minorities.
Oh, great to make a great insight and feedback on that particular issue for sure. You talk about, coaches do have a great opportunity to mentor other young coaches and dobos that, in the game to grow the game. And you even hear people talk about what coaching tree they came from. Really that's a great segue into, okay, you got your coaching tree, you got your mentor, you got your sponsors. And then, lo and behold, you feel like you've been doing everything, right, lining it up for that next big step or position or whatever next aspiration you might have in your career. But then this is a search firm that's kind of holding the keys to the room, right? The keys to the gate. So Jason, can you speak a little bit to what role you feel like search firms play in really ensuring that the pool is diverse and ultimately that a diverse candidate pool, results in the hiring of somebody that's outside of the norm, perhaps for what ADs traditionally have been doing for years and years?
Sure. So a couple of things. One, I do think that search firms are very valuable from a perspective of bringing in a diverse group of candidates, not just in terms of diversity and color, but in terms of experiences and other elements. The research has shown that search firms don't really give an institution a leg up in terms of hiring a better coach. In terms of performance over the long run. We've published a lot of studies on that. But what they do is allow for an AD who may or may not necessarily know who some of the best candidates that are a good fit for their institution, and they bring those people to the table. And so I think that a lot of times search firms sometimes get a bad rap because they often are accused of bringing the same people to the table over and over again. But a lot of that also has to do with there are certain coaches that are have performed very well, and they're always going to be at the tops of people's lists regardless. But I've been in this business for 15 years. I've been involved in 200-300 different coaching searches. And for the most part, if there's a candidate that makes sense for a position, a search firm is going to be able to identify those individuals. And so a little bit back to your previous question that we just discussed, and even the first one, I think a lot of responsibility lays on the coaches themselves, both as a young, aspiring head coach and assistant coach, and even the current head coaches, to go out and build relationships with these search firms and also with ADs. I think one of the problems that the industry has from a professional standpoint, and this is really pretty much in any industry, is that sometimes people are so eager to be a head coach or a leader that they think that they're qualified for every job, or they're more specifically think they're a fit for every job, but that's just not the case. And so a good coach makes a determination as to what institution they fit well, what kind of program they want to coach at. Felisha mentioned being at an institution where she was hired by one person that she fit with, and then the other person came in and it wasn't a good fit. Same thing a coach needs to do in that situation. And once you make the determination, once you say, listen, I know that these are the 10 or 15 schools that I would be a great head coach at. Now you go build relationships with those ADs, and you also go to the search firms and say, listen, don't consider me for every job because I'm not a fit for every job. Consider me for Buffalo or Yale or UC Riverside or whatever it is that I feel that I would be a great institutional fit at.
Thanks, Jason. And I think Coach Jack, you had talked about fit a little bit earlier. So that sometimes when we hear that word, it resonates and hits people differently, because I know I've heard coaches say, they felt like they were the perfect candidate on paper, but then on the other side, the AD says, well, you weren't the right fit. You were great, but you weren't the right fit. So maybe Tamica, can you speak on that again? You're in that hiring chair, and then maybe I'd love the coaches to chime in a little bit too, because to see how that lands on you and what your perspective is on fit when you were pursuing the roles that you're in now. How did you know that it was quote unquote the right fit?
Well, as I shared that the fit makes me cringe. I'll just be honest with you. And I've hired a lot of coaches in my career, and I'll just reflect back on my last hire, which was before our women's basketball hire, which we landed a great hire in our women's basketball coach. Coach Powell is our women's coach right now. And then prior to that, I hired David Patrick, who for our men's program, who was a first-time head coach. And Coach Powell's a second-time head coach, so it's a little different. But Coach Patrick was a first-time head coach, and it was a very attractive job, and I was very clear on the profile. The fit really came down to I needed someone that could recruit internationally, and I wanted to be the St. Mary's of the Big West, and that was the fit. And so David Patrick had it nailed and has turned our program around in the way that we thought we could turn it around. And so one thing that I will say about that from a leadership standpoint is I've never gone into hiring, looking for, any particular ethnicity or identity in a candidate. I'm always looking for the most qualified, the one that I believe can be successful where I am. And really my responsibility as the athletic director is to support coaches. And I strongly believe that. I believe I will not put a coach in a position that I thought that they would not be successful in. I mean, because their success and my success and the program's success are all tied together. So I think when we think about fit, we really should think about, the culture and the leadership and style becomes a lot of it. But at the end of the day, for me, it's about, who can get the job done. And I want to make sure that we put the right people in position. And that could look like, a multiple, set of people. But being able to nail it like we've done in the last two hires at Riverside with men's and women's basketball really becomes the relationships that you've, had over the years. And so that's why it's so important, as some of the coaches have said, that you get to know and initiate those conversations with athletic directors, but also that athletic directors really do their work in understanding what they need for their program. So again, I think fit is quality stuff, but I don't use it loosely.
Great. I'll turn it over to you, Coach Jones, because you've been in the Ivy League and a product of that environment for a while. So how did you recognize that was the right fit for you?
Well, I got issue with that word too, because Jason was right in thinking that coaches think they're a right fit for everywhere. Tell me where I can't coach. I don't know where that is. I really don't. Tell me where I can't be successful. I don't know where that is, because at the end of the day, to me, basketball is basketball. And I have to get 15 young men or 13 young men to come in and play together and play within a system and believe in what I'm trying to sell them. And that's what it comes down to, building a program, having things that are important to you, and being able to give that information to those young men and have them follow it. So why I can't do that anywhere in the country, that's beyond me. Now, you say, well, this is a rural area and maybe you don't fit here with the people that are here. Well, that's got nothing to do with basketball. That's got nothing to do with me going out on the court and coaching every day and trying to bring a group of men together. I think that's what I do better than anything that I do. I bring a group of young men together to believe in one common goal and to fight for that and to go after that one goal in a certain way. So it's hard as a coach when you feel that you know what you're doing to say that you can't coach in most any place in the country. I understand what people say about a certain fit, but that's not something I'm going to tie myself down to. I'm not tying myself down to, I can only be at these 15 places, because I don't believe that. Why would I say that if I don't believe it? I think I can coach anywhere. So I think you need to break down the word fit a great deal to understand what that means and what are we really saying when we say, are we a fit or not? I want to know what that is. And then I maybe be able to answer that question a little easier. But if it comes down to coaching basketball, I can coach. Coach Jack can coach. That's what we do. Doesn't make a difference where it is. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be successful no matter where I am, because I know what I'm doing.
Well, I want to make a counterpoint, or even elaborate a little bit on what James said. you mentioned a couple of important things. One being that fit means a lot of things. And so one of the things I would put at you is think about the fact that, and Felisha mentioned this before, there are some administrators, for example, that may not necessarily agree with the way that you approach building a culture or a program. For example, some administrators may not have the patience for somebody to come in and build or recruit certain types of student athletes and, you know, get old or bring in junior college players or whatever that may look like, right? So I agree with you that coaching is coaching from an X's and O's standpoint, but there's a lot of other things that go into building a program. And so to maximize your opportunity to get a head coaching job as a coach, but also to be successful in a certain situation, you need to understand everything that is going on at an institution, at a program, what the positives and negatives are at that institution, the constraints and the advantages that that program has, and then also what your positive strengths and weaknesses are and how those two tie in together. And the better that you can articulate that and say, hey, this lines up because, you know, this institution values graduating student athletes. This institution says we're okay with waiting 3-4 years until this program gets turned around, and that's how I want to build things. Then there's a better chance that you're going to get the job and you're going to be successful at it.
So let me ask you a question with that, Jason. Where is it that Tom Izzo can't coach? Tell me where Tom Izzo can't coach.
That's a really good question, and the question is never going to get answered because Tom has only really been at one institution.
No, but who wouldn't hire Tom Izzo? There's nobody that wouldn't hire Tom Izzo because the people believe in him. They believe he can coach. I believe, like Tom Izzo believes in himself, that he can go out and do that, and that's why I believe what I say. And to me, like all those, and I get what you're saying about, you know, timing, what we want to do, but there's no one that's not going to hire Tom Izzo given an opportunity. And why is that?
Well, let me answer. Well, I'm not speaking for Tom Izzo, but I used to work at Michigan State, so I do know him and some folks in his circle. So he has been offered NBA opportunities, right? But he hasn't taken those opportunities because he didn't believe that it's a fit. So whatever that means for him. So to your point, yeah, he could probably go coach anywhere he wants, but has chosen not to go to the NBA for a reason. So I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to belabor that point.
I don't want to belabor it either, but the point is, who wouldn't hire Tom Izzo was my point. Who wouldn't hire him?
Right.
And everybody would hire him.
But that doesn't mean that that would be a good hire. And that's the point. That's just being lazy to say, let me get the big name and hope it works, which is why so many coaches get recycled and people like James Jones don't get opportunities because somebody would rather hire somebody that they think is a sure thing what actually qualifying why they're a fit for the particular institution. That's a whole big another topic. That's what we wanted to right there.
That's part 2 of the forum for next month. Coach Jack, anything you want to add to that? Because you've kind of been at 2 institutions, you know, Big Ten, and now you've been at Buffalo with some great success. Again, you talked a little bit about fit at Indiana and versus maybe how that culture changed for you under a new leadership.
Well, the fit has to fit for me as a woman. It has to fit. I can coach anywhere. I can coach in NBA. I would love, my dream was to coach in NBA. I love coaching guys. I love coaching my nephews and cousins and my son, obviously. But the fit has to be with my husband. It has to be with my son. It has to be with my God. It has to feel, I have to have clarity for the fit. The fit comes with what I need for myself so I can be great. I didn't want to take the Indiana job, but I really thought that Rick Greenspan and our president, Herbert, was really the right people in my space for me to have success. And before I went to Indiana, I went with eyes wide open. I looked at the people that in the area, and then Muffin McGraw, who's going to be a Hall of Fame coach. I thought, okay, she doesn't look like me. How much time did she get to have success? She had 9 years before she had a winning season, I think. And all the people there that didn't look like me had so much time. And I said to Rick, I said, I am not coming there with 5 years of time. You know, my family's going to stay together. So the fit had to be my family. The fit had to be with people that I knew going to Indiana is going to give me an opportunity to be my authentic self as much as I could. And so all the jobs I've gotten has never been with a search firm. I've never gotten a job with a search firm. I got jobs with people. And Harry Roy at Hofstra, when I went to Hofstra, I was going to win a national championship at Hofstra. Heck, I go to Indiana with those cats, I'm coming to win a championship. At Buffalo, we're getting closer every year. I came here for a guy named Danny White. I was a fire coach, but Anuka Brown saw that I was a coach that had some more hope left in me and brought my name to a gentleman who already had a search firm. And he didn't like the people he saw. He said, bring me somebody else that's different. And I went there and I met him, and the people are what I feel. I don't care what kind of school, or big or small or Catholic, or I can recruit. I can recruit kids to play for me, but the fit has to be me in that space with the people that's leading the charge. And that is, everything we're saying is all great. I think, Coach, like you said, I watch you, Coach. You can coach any daggone place, as I can, and most of our colleagues. But the fit has to, in my opinion, as a woman, my husband and my family has to feel comfortable in that space where I'm trying to get the job done.
Okay, great. Thanks, Coach Jack. You mentioned kind of this aspiration of coaching on the men's side. Maybe Jason and Tamica can speak to this. Why don't you see more men's programs hiring women coaches? Are females not applying? Is it just not in the mindset of those who are in the hiring chair to look at female candidates for positions?
I'm going to give two reasons. One of the reasons why we've seen this movement take hold in the professional ranks much faster than the collegiate ranks is that there's no cap on the number of assistant coaches that you can have on a professional, bench, right? So every NBA franchise can hire a female coach, or as many female coaches as they want, without necessarily taking away a men's coach. That doesn't happen on college sports, right? And so you can only have 3 coaches. And so the second issue is that most coaches will lean on hiring somebody, number one, that they know. And quite frankly, most men's coaches don't interact with women's coaches and vice versa, right? They're not having an opportunity to engage and work together. And 2, and this is just in general, one of the biggest mistakes that coaches make is hiring people that they only know and that they trust. And if you can't trust a person, and then you're going to take a risk on the fact that they may not have the experience also working with men, right? Because think about the fact that most young males in high school don't have women coaching them, right? And so for them, it's a different experience. And so now to take that risk, it's not easy. If tomorrow the NCAA said, we're going to create an additional spot on your staff, you can have an assistant coach, it has to be filled by somebody of the opposite sex, every single program in Division I would hire a female onto their bench, because why not, right? It's just another coach. So it's really just a limitation. And quite frankly, it's an issue that can be solved very easily by the NCAA if they simply said, let's open this up and let's mandate this opportunity for both. And it's pretty clear, if men can coach women's sports, there's no question that women can coach men's sports. It's just really an artificial constraint that's created this situation.
Okay.
I have nothing to add to what Jason said. He hit it spot on. Only thing I would say is that we tend to do as humans what is comfortable. And so if we can just get out of our own way and let the coaches coach, whether they're male, female, cross coaching males and females, we would do ourselves a great service. So Jason, you nailed it.
Yeah, and I have no idea why we have so many men coaching women's sports. That's something that's always surprised me, how many men we have coaching women's sports. I don't understand that.
So Coach Jones, I'll put you on the spot. You had an opening for an assistant coach. Would you hire a female?
Would I hire a female? All things being equal, yes.
Okay, you heard it here, live and in color. Great, thank you. Speaking, again, there's a lot of hiring pledges out there right now, a lot of diversity pledges that ADs in different schools are signing off on. And I believe even the NABC, we've gotten behind, and WBCA has gotten behind the Russell Rule Pledge that the West Coast Conference put out this summer. So can you speak, this is actually a question for everybody. Can you speak to, the importance of things of that nature and how institutions can even take those statements to another level in terms of actually executing and hiring people of color. It's one thing to say, yep, we're going to have somebody in the pool, you're going to have at least one finalist, but how do you actually get that person to sign the contract, and this is the person that I'm going to hire? Like, what else needs to be done besides these statements?
I'll take a shot at it first, since we, as Athletic Director-U, put together the Collegiate Coaching Diversity Pledge. The irony is that I spent a better part of this past year and the quarantine that we all went in through making that pledge a reality. And my biggest wish is that 5 to 10 years from now, it doesn't have to exist. There's no reason why everyone needs to sign a piece of paper stating that they're going to promise to hire diverse or interview diverse candidates, because quite frankly, it should just be standard operating procedure. But for the very same reason that we just discussed about why men's coaches don't hire women to their benches is the same reason why ADs don't necessarily go out and find the most diverse pools. And that's because we're all biased, and it's because we only talk to the people and look at the people that look like us. And so that's why we created that pledge. And the reality is that we wanted to ensure that somebody was getting to the final table and having an equal opportunity to get the job. That it wasn't just sort of some token rule, which is exactly what the Rooney Rule is in the NFL. It's literally a token interview. There's no enforceability. There's no accountability. That's what we wanted to make sure that we had with the Collegiate Coaching Diversity Pledge. And I'm 100% confident that if there was full adoption of the pledge, that we would, in a few years, have an equalization of diverse coaching head coaches from the number standpoint. And then in a couple of more years, it would just become standard practice and everyone can move on, and there wouldn't be any issues anymore with this diversity and inclusion effort that we keep seeing from all these groups.
Okay, great, Jason. Anyone else have anything else to add to that? Great. I want to transition to a question in the chat before we run out of time here. We got about 15 minutes left. Actually, this is a question from media. It says, what can media do if they haven't done so already to further this conversation rather than just an occasional story? And that's from Charles Howman of the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. So thank you for that question.
I just watched so many people that get fired get an opportunity to be on ESPN. You know, Tom Crane lost his job and was a year interviewing for jobs by being an incredible speaker and articulating how the game should be played, and have him now see how successful he is at Georgia. A young lady gets fired from Florida. She goes on do play-by-play for her conference. Now she ends up at Clemson as the head coach. We don't get those opportunities to self-promote. And so if the media sees people like Coach and myself doing a substantial job, then we need to communicate about that. Everybody can talk about the top 20 coaches and kill it, and just kill it. I'm like, I know so much about the top 20 coaches, more than I know about my own kid, because that's all you hear. There's got to be 300 plus more coaches are doing something very different and great at other places. And the media got to dive deeper and find these needles in the haystack and promote them and make them sensationalized so that people can say, well, what the heck is that person keep talking about, you know? And we can do things of that nature. Give us opportunities to get out there and fail forward in the media by doing, you know, play-by-play and things of that nature. I think you'll find a lot more of us rebounding back or getting opportunities. You just hired an incredible coach at Duke University, and I think that if she wasn't on television on a daily basis, you wouldn't know how intelligent she was, and you wouldn't have really understood the dynamic she's going to give women's basketball as the years to come. So give us an opportunity by speaking about the ones that haven't gotten there yet. Everybody else doing the top 20, 25 teams. Why not you hit the 30 to 60?
Let me jump in there as well. You know, the gentleman talked about the occasional story. Why isn't there a story that every time a job is filled that is not filled with a minority, when we have numbers that are skewed in the opposite way? If you look at, there's one minority coach in the entire Big Ten. Like every time there's a job that comes open, why is there a story about that when that happens? Every single time a job opens. I see on ESPN, they have these articles written by like who's on a hot seat and who's next. Like, do we ever think about who we write about who's next? Or do we just go with the guys we know? So it's the people who write the articles look like the people that they're writing about. And they don't ever stop to think, well, is there any other people that may be in this profile that I can add? And it doesn't seem like they're thinking about it. Somebody has to do some homework, I guess is my point. Do some homework, uncover some rocks, try to find out, ask some questions, ask commissioners of leagues, who are the best minority coaches in your league? Who do you think? They might be right, they might be wrong, but they may be able to give you a name and you can do some further research on them. And that's something that's just not done.
Yeah, thanks, coaches. Those are some great insights there. The question actually from Craig Robinson. So thank you for the question. The question is, and this is, anybody can answer this. How can we make coaches more comfortable with developing relationships with ADs, presidents, again, basically the people or provosts, the folks in these hiring chairs? Because again, at the end of the day, it's about relationship, and folks in leadership obviously want to be comfortable with who's in that seat as a head coach representing their respective institution. So how can we, or what can we do, perhaps as a WBCA and or NABC, help coaches in that space? What advice does this group have?
I would ask for the groups to be a liaison between coaches and ADs. Try to put together some relationships where introduce each other. Hey, listen, said AD at this university, here is a coach from said university, meet that way. And have them be liaison between the two groups, so you could bring them together to start forming a relationship to see if they can do it. If they respect the people in these organizations, they should respect the coaches that they bring them to and that they introduce them to.
I think it's time for us to get uncomfortable. We had a lot of time to think about things and pondered a little bit. In the last 8 months, all these organizations have surfaced. I joined a group called Advancing Blacks in Sports. I think it's important that we get uncomfortable. And I think that we have to put the student athlete first for a change. We're getting all these jobs and we're getting all these accolades and we're getting all these opportunities, and it's all wonderful for just all colleagues, black, white, and different. I think that what the WBCA and NABC has to get to these ADs and make them uncomfortable, because they're student athletes that are really, we're losing them right now. And this is a real strong point for me. Like, we have transfers that came through well before this COVID happened. We got 54 of them still unable to play. And the NCAA says we all can play, except for the ones that the AD says they can't. What is the rationale? How did the WBCA, the NABC go to those 54 different institutions and say, why won't you let these kids play? What's your rationale? It's you're comfortable, but now the kid is uncomfortable. We have to make these kids as comfortable as possible, because they're the future of us. And I think right now we got comfortable ADs and we got people in the background saying, they didn't give me an opportunity, help me. I want to be uncomfortable. Every day I wake up, every morning I wake up, I think there's an opportunity for me to lose my job. And I'm the breadwinner of my family. I get out there and I'm hungry. Nobody's gonna ever be more hungry than me. I'm getting after every time. Even when the game's over and we won, I'm still in my mind saying they almost beat us. We can win by 30. Why? That's my mindset. But what's the mindset of the AD that's going around and hanging out with football and not realizing we got a kid named Jared Patterson. What's his family like? Do you know where he's from? We don't even know these kids, man. I know all my players. I know everything about them. I know about the football team. I know about the men's basketball, because the kids matter to me. And if we're comfortable, then we have a problem in the WBCA, the NABC. We have problems at our universities, and we got problems with higher education. Why? Because the students got to be the forefront of what we're trying to do. And I don't see that. I don't sense that. I never get in big fights about who should get this job or that job. I get really upset when I see a kid leave her institution, whatever school, and they come to me and say, can you get me a job? Give me a job, because you always hire people that look like you. Well, no, what baby, where are you from? Why aren't you at University X? They won't even look at me, coach. They won't even talk to me after you play 4 years and take them to the Sweet 16 or whatever. Are you shitting me? So that's what we need to get our ADs. If you're comfortable AD, you need to be fired. How's that for a word? And if you're willing and you want to keep your job, get to know the people that's paying your rent, paying your mortgage. And that's kind of, I don't want to get too crazy off this thing, but we are so comfortable in a higher level. I've done something. I'm the AD. You just started, baby. And these kids are looking for you for all the answers. For every decision you make, it impacts their lives. Most of those kids that look like me, they're going to have to be breadwinners to their family because those family members say, "Ooh, they got to college. Maybe you get educated and maybe you can get us out the ghetto." It's time for them to understand the impact of that. And my kids are foreign. I got 8 kids that are from all over the world, and they are wearing shirts that says Black Lives Matter. Why? Because they have been in the smallness of their country and being overlooked too. And if you can protect these Black people that's here in your institutions, maybe Sweden, Germany, England will see me as well. So it's a masterful thing that we're trying to create here just on our team. Well, who cares? Administration? Let's find out.
I want to have a panel. I just want to listen to Coach Jack. How about that? How about that? I'm just going to listen to Coach Jack. You go, girl. You go. That was awesome.
Thanks, Coach Jack, for that passionate response. And, hopefully there was some great nuggets in there and some great takeaways. And as we kind of close out here in the last 5 minutes, I want to leave an opportunity for each panelist to leave us with some nuggets of wisdom as well. And just some final thoughts on, 1 or 2 things that you think coaches can do in this space in terms of elevating themselves if they aspire to be a head coach, or ADs in terms of doing a much better job and not just lip service, an actual tangible job, strategic effort to hire more people of color in the head coaching chairs. So what nuggets of advice do you have here in these closing minutes? I'll start with you, Jason.
Sure. So my word is going to be intentional. For administrators, you have to realize, just like all people, that you're biased and that you're going to have a tendency to want to be around and hire people that look like you. And so you have to be intentional, just like Felisha just mentioned, about going out and meeting people that don't look like you, that don't talk like you, that come from different places than you, and expanding your network so that you can draw from other pools and also be able to compare people, right, and understand where they're coming from. And the same goes for coaches. You have to be intentional. Again, just like Felisha said, you sometimes hope that somebody notices you. You have to go out and get noticed. You have to build relationships. And if we were to be able to combine those two and create a two-way street, all of a sudden you're going to have an opportunity for more ADs to meet more coaches and more coaches to meet more ADs. And we're going to slowly see those numbers move in the direction that we all want to.
Great, thank you. How about you, Coach Jones, next?
Yeah, there's strength in numbers, and I think that coaches have to take care of themselves and each other. I think one of the great things about this pandemic, I've developed relationships with a number of different Black coaches groups. And one of the things that I do is I just reach out to somebody that I don't know once a month just to start a relationship with them, and making sure that I, have those conversations and make sure I try to promote the young minority candidates that I have on my staff to those coaches. So I think that that's really important to make sure that we continue to do that in the work. And because again, like, you have to take care of yourself first, because like we're talking about, no one's going to take care of you. You got to take care of the shit from within first.
All right, great. Tamica, you have any closing thoughts or advice?
Yeah, I do. I would just say that as a sitting athletic director, that we have to, like Jason said, be intentional, but create an environment where we can build and develop talent. I'm so fortunate to be able to have a interim head coach for my men's basketball program, Coach Mike McPowell, because of that philosophy that, we've established in our program. Everybody's not going to get an opportunity, but when opportunity presents itself, I just really feel like if we've done our jobs as athletic directors, administrators, senior woman administrators, senior associates, to really develop the talent pool that we have on our staffs, we can position this pipeline a lot better than we've had in the last several years. I'm excited about what I'm seeing on the landscape with more opportunities being presented, but I'm also sad in many days because I look at, you know, what has happened since Title IX, and the needle has not moved much. And so I'm looking forward to being a part of the solution. And so I spend my Fridays doing this work. So anybody that I can help in any way, I just would like to, you know, just yield myself to you and know that I'm here to serve.
Thanks, Tamica. And last but not least, Coach Jack.
You know, I just want young people to understand that, you know, you matter. And a lot of people are working in the background right now to really make opportunity happen for you and for us. And what you have to do is continue to pounce out that bed and believe that right now, where your feet are is the best job that you can have. Where your feet are, and lock into your feet. Put your head down and do the work for that spot that you're at. A lot of young coaches always looking up and around and see what's the next opportunity, and it never comes because you missed the great one that was right there at your feet. Please know that we're doing our part. We're getting out after these ADs and administration and the WBCA and the NCAA. The battle is being fought, but you need to get yourself ready, and you got to do the mentorship. You have to work your tail off and understand hope is getting closer. It's getting closer, but you must stay locked on ready and know we're not moving it as fast as we want to, but it's faster than it was. And that's what we got to lean on. We got to lean on hope. In order to lean on hope, you got to see some kind of success. It can get dreary sometimes, and you can just drop your head and say, I just don't see it. Well, it's happening. But if you don't be locked on ready, when that opportunity comes, you're going to be the one that don't get the job that we should have gotten that looked like me and you, because you simply didn't have yourself locked on ready. I'm so proud of the efforts that the NABC and the WBCA is doing right now to continue to give people like myself and Coach Jones and all the people that look like us, the diversity of this hope. I see us working really diligently to get this thing right, but we got to get a little bit more uncomfortable.
All right, thanks, Coach Jack. This has been an awesome, fast-paced hour, and I'm so appreciative of your time today, and everybody who participated, and hopefully you walked away with more than one nugget. I know I did. I was taking and jotting down some notes from each one of you. Tamica, you talked about positioning the pipeline. That's the role of leaders. When you're in that hiring seat, you've got to position the pipeline, and there's no excuse in the 21st century not to do that. It behooves you to do that. You owe that to your student athlete population. You owe that to your campus community to bring in a diverse set of staff, not just coaches, but faculty across the board. Your campus should not be homogenous, and you have to be part of that solution on your respective campuses. And I think permission to become, I'm going to probably be using that. I'll credit you with that, Coach Jack. Be yourself. You have to be your whole self in positions and stand firm and work hard. As Coach Jack said, you got to do the work where you are. Sometimes I see people, and not just coaches, looking around, looking for that next opportunity, and you got to shine where you are, grow where you're planted, as my grandma used to say. So it's been a lot of great nuggets here. Leadership matters. I think that I heard that from you, Coach Jones, that it matters. It matters when you role model and you model what you want. When you model to your assistant coaches what it means to be at the next level. When you model opportunities to expand themselves on things that may be hard, like learning a budget, doing something other than recruiting. Coaching is much more than just the X's and O's. So thank you for sharing and your insights on how you model that for your staff and stretch them to be more than just X's and O's. And last but not least, Jason, thank you for your insights and all you've done to get this diversity pledge up and running and to challenge people to bring in people of color into the pool. Again, that is our hope and prayer too, that in a few years that won't be necessary to have it on a piece of paper. It'll just be innate, and that will be part of the process without second thought. So thank you all today for your contributions and your time. And I'm just really humbled to have this opportunity to talk with you and facilitate this discussion. It was great. So thank you for all the participants. And again, thank you for the WBCA and NABC for putting this together.